1 death, 2 death, 3 death, 4 death, 5.
Oh my god.
Not all Star Wars characters can survive. Everyone, welcome back to another Top 5-tastic episode of Empire Radio. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Drew.
And we are back with a top 5. Everyone loves the top 5s, and we haven't done it in a while because there's not a lot of top 5s we can do, so we're just like trying to make them up whenever we can think of something. So we're doing top 5 deaths.
Yeah.
Yep.
I felt like we were just here.
We were. So we were late recording for last week, so that came up, got posted on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And so go check out our book review with Grace for Temptations of the Force, book 5 of the High Republic books, adult novel books. And so that's up. We had a lot of fun with that. It was a long one. Grace almost fell asleep at the end.
Yeah, which I don't. Thinking back at them, like, girl, why are you complaining though? You're like 3 hours or 2 hours in front of us.
It's already past your bedtime.
It was like 9 o'clock for her.
It was like closer to 10, I think. Oh,
still,
I don't even remember. Whatever. But
either way,
go check out our book review. It was a lot of fun. A lot of hot takes. A lot of like debating and like trying to interpret what's going on in the book. So go check that out if you haven't seen that yet. But when this one goes up, we're gonna probably put up this a couple days later than normal, just so it's not all scrunched together with that other episode in your Spotify feed or iTunes feed. So
because it's not a bonus episode.
No, it was just a late recording. So
it was a delayed episode.
Yep.
But we're here, and let's acknowledge the elephant in the room.
There's an elephant in the room?
There is. Or bantha, as
What's
some of the cool kids say now. We probably told you, but as you guys can see, Andrew didn't make it.
Oh, yeah.
Because his wife is sick, so he is on husband duty. So don't go on the Discord and write to him and call him names or anything. Calm down. It's okay. He'll be back soon. So
someday. We don't know when. Yep. So sorry, you're all looking forward to Andrew being here for top 5. Because I don't think he's done one with us for a long time, so it would have been a lot of fun, but
it's okay.
That's okay. But we're here, so we're good enough.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're looking at you, Will. I don't know.
Yep, Will. Hopefully you're happy with us watching in the chat. But yeah, top 5. So we're doing top 5 deaths. And so this is kind of like a weird topic to do. So we were like just thinking, okay, it could be like a memorable death or like a meaningful death or a funny death or like, screw that guy, I'm happy he just got killed death. So it could be like any kind of type of death. And so we're going to just kind of wing it. And hopefully, because like there's so many people die in Star Wars, and I'm sure that we're forgetting a lot. So if you're in the chat, and I'm sure we'll have that as a Q&A, is like what are your top 5 deaths, number 1 deaths. And so let us know in the comments of this episode on YouTube or on like Spotify, and then we'll try and get back to that next week when we do Comics with Grace, doing the next installment of the Vader Dr. Aphra. So she did half her presentation last time, and now she's going to finish it tonight. Or not tonight. Next week.
Not tonight.
So go get ready for that.
Go catch up if you guys didn't see that episode either.
Yep, that was a really fun episode learning about Vader between episodes 4 and 5. Really fun, interesting stuff. Changes how you...
I almost feel like I need to watch it so I remember.
All right.
But I probably won't.
Make sure you check out the YouTube version so you can appreciate Grace and I's working together to make that presentation. So on YouTube. So all right, but we're not here for that anymore. We're here for top 5. So who's going first with their number 5s?
Um, I don't matter to me.
All right, Drew, you're up. What is
All
your
right,
number 5?
a number 5. Okay, so all of mine are kind of meaningful ish. I mean, yeah, I would say they're all meaningful. None of them are like I'm happy this person died or anything like that. The first one's a little like how meaningful is it? But we're gonna go with it. So my first one, my number 5 death in Star Wars is Jango Fett.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that was a pretty meaningful thing because it created Boba, and the impact that a kid would have watching their father's head fall off is pretty intense. And I mean, we saw the emotion when he picked up the helmet and like put it towards his own head, and like it created that character. But I also feel like it also had a pretty big impact because if he wouldn't have died like that, maybe they could have figured out how to clone differently or like use him in a certain way, or they could have figured out that he was a clone and he could have also potentially helped the other people with cloning in a negative way. So I feel like it was a really like breaking down, like thinking about all these deaths. I'm like that death was actually pretty impactful for the future of Star Wars with Boba Fett and his character and his development. So I think Jango Fett's death was a pretty impactful death in Star Wars.
Yeah, because I
So
think was it I think it was season 1 of Bad Batch. Like Nala Se is talking, and like they needed more DNA like, from the host,
mhm.
which they couldn't. So they had their ability to make new clones was diminishing because they didn't have any more of Django's pure DNA. That's why they kind of wanted to look for Boba or Omega to use their
which
DNA.
which is interesting too because like what if he was still around? Would the Empire use him to
Maybe,
help develop Palpatine cloning stuff instead of using Omega
maybe you never know.
because he was the main host and stuff like that. So I feel like it would have been really crazy to if he actually would have survived. And then also Boba probably wouldn't have became that Boba, you know. Not to say he would be a pure good guy, obviously not.
Right,
But maybe he would have been even a better bounty hunter because he was under his dad for even longer.
right.
Maybe he would have looked different. I don't know. I think it would have been a very interesting
Well, he would have had
thing.
different armor too, because his dad had his own armor.
Exactly.
So
Also, would he realize what the Empire did to the Mandalorians, and would he become like full on Mandalorian? Like, is that maybe could be a thing? I don't know. There's like so much that could have happened with him if he would have stayed around. I think is really interesting to really think about. So
yep, and every single time we talk about Jango Fett's death, I always have to mention that if you actually go watch when he gets decapitated, you see
you
the
see his hair.
shadow fall out of the helmet. And
Yeah.
so when Boba is there holding the helmet to his head,
There's not actual head in it.
his dad's head is literally like 5 feet away looking at him.
Yeah.
That's
It's
kind of funny.
kind of dark.
All right.
Scarring for sure.
Cool, cool. All right. My number 5, I had to put so this death is what inspired me to have this topic of top 5 deaths. It
Oh.
was and so spoilers if you haven't watched Acolyte yet,
Ooh.
but I am putting at number 5 Jackie's death.
Wow.
Dude, I was so upset when she got killed. It was so surprising, so shocking. She was my favorite character in Acolyte,
I think she
and
was well, no, I like Soul. I think Soul is my favorite,
but I was so sad when I said out loud, no, 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 like not. It was just I was just really sad, and so like I wanted to see more of her of like what she could have done because she was like really putting in his work when she was fighting
She was what, 16, 17, something like that, like
something
super
like that.
young.
She's just a teenager. She might have been a little bit older, but because you know Padawan, like Obi-Wan was like 25 in episode 1 or something, so she could have been like late teens, early 20s or something. I don't know, but like she was so good fighting with Soul against
Oh yeah.
Chimere. Like they were just a great team fighting, and she was really competent. I was like, dang, she's gonna be the best Jedi ever. And then she gets stabbed 3 times, and it was very, very sad.
Yep.
So I had to put that in there. And I know because we can only do top fives. There's gonna be a lot of deaths that people you're gonna put that over this death because I
I
know
know that's a pretty hot take because
there's
it's new, but
because there's mainly one that I know a lot of people are gonna have on their list that I don't have on mine, but I have as an honorable mention.
ooh.
So people are gonna be mad if we might get hate for.
Well, I think if it's the one that I'm thinking you're thinking, is also I'm not on my list. So
I know it would be on Andrew's list.
yep, we're thinking of the same one. Okay.
All right, Drew. What is your number 4 top death?
Mace Windu.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Granted,
even
I
think of
guess
that
we
one.
don't really know if he's dead, but as of
Right.
now, he's dead in our minds. So let's go with that he's dead. With that, I think Mace Windu's death was pretty impactful for the galaxy and what became of it.
Right.
I mean, without Mace Windu dying, Palpatine probably would have got arrested, and that would have been completely different. Also the scarring, he couldn't say that if Mace Windu was still around. Also, Anakin wouldn't have fell right then and there. Not to say he wouldn't fall somewhere else later, but in that moment is when he actually fell.
Right. When he
So
chopped off the
if
arm and
yeah, so if he wouldn't have done that, then he probably wouldn't have fell right away. So I think that his death is pretty intense when it comes to what becomes of the Order 66 like right after that. So I think it's a very impactful death, and he was his personality and what he was bringing to the Jedi and stuff like that was a pretty if he could have survived Order 66, I feel like the Empire potentially wouldn't have been so strong slash maybe they wouldn't have survived as long because of his character and like he could have planned stuff behind the scenes and maybe the rebellion would have started quicker.
yeah,
So
because he would have been the only, well, other than Yoda,
and Obi-Wan.
and Obi Wan. Okay, I guess there's more, but like of Jedi Council members.
Mhm.
So like you know, Yoda and Obi Wan meet up after Order 66, and they kill everyone, all the clones at the temple. But like if Windu was there, like how would he? What would he have done? Because Yoda goes into exile because he can't live with himself,
Mhm.
failing, and then Obi Wan has to protect Luke. So it's like, what would
Mhm.
have Mace done? And
I don't think he would have sat around.
right,
I don't think he would have maybe even let Obi-Wan go into exile. Like who knows? Or him and Yoda could have teamed up against Palpatine at the same time.
that too.
Like that could have happened. Or him and Obi-Wan could have teamed up against Anakin. Like there's a lot of potential of what could have happened if he would have survived. And I feel like with his fighting style and his passion, I feel like he would have probably I could see him starting a rebellion quicker than waiting for so long for this rebellion to happen.
Possibly.
So
But our boy Samuel L. Jackson, in his mind, Mace Windu is still alive, and he's
yeah, I
always saying
know.
like he wants to revise him. So like, I wouldn't. Okay, we all hate when people bring dead people back in whatever
It
movies.
wouldn't put it past me if he's not
Like I
actually dead.
wouldn't. I wouldn't be mad if they brought him back,
Oh heck no! I think that'd be dope.
even if it was just for like a short thing where it's like he tried to like fight back for like a month after Order 66 and then died. Like that, I'd be fine with like a
Mhm.
one season thing of him like getting that like some clones together to like fight back, and then they all die on a mission together or something like a month after or something at the hands of Vader, like his first like being
That
sent
would
out
be sick.
because we know the Inquisitorius was already established like day of Order 66. There's people like the Grand
Uh-huh.
Inquisitor and all that stuff. So there were Inquisitors, but they weren't ready to go out yet per se. So yeah, Mace surviving would have been a big thing.
Yeah.
All right, my number 4 is when, and I think it's either season 1 or 2 of the Clone Wars. There's a scene when Ventress is fighting clones, and she pulls the clone, uses the Force to pull it into her blade, and then she kisses him on the cheek, and then he drops dead. You remember that?
I do remember that. That
So,
clone is a death.
so that is a big deal, just because of like one, that scene was originally deleted and wasn't allowed on Cartoon Network because of how violent it was. But
Oh,
like,
I didn't know that.
yeah, so but like that scene is just like very reminiscent of like this is a kid show, but it's actually not a kid
But
show
it's not.
because
It
like
was
that
the
is
beginning of the end.
like that's a really dark thing. Like a
Oh,
clone gets
to
pulled
kill.
into the saber and then she kisses him on the cheek.
Yeah, that's pretty
Like it's
intense.
pretty like not kid friendly. But like it reflects like why Clone Wars is so good of a show. Like even at season 1 and 2, like there's still some really great things that like show the realness of what the Clone Wars was and
Hmm.
what's going on, and it's just a crazy, crazy scene. And Ventress becomes a fun character to follow her until she died, but didn't die, I guess.
Hmm.
Spoilers for a book and a TV show, but yeah. So that's my number 4. Drew,
So
what's your number 3?
my number 3, I feel like this is potentially your number 1, or
Oh,
definitely on your list. Definitely for sure on Andrew's list.
okay,
Mr. Kanan Jarrus.
okay.
I mean, do I say more? His his death is iconic. Everyone knows his death. When
Well, all those schmucks out there that
okay,
Rebels, that's for kids. I'm not gonna watch that show. Okay.
every real Star Wars fan out there knows of this death and what it meant to the rebels and what it meant to that era of Star Wars and what it brings to the Ahsoka show and everything like that. And like the presence of his death was so impactful from that point on to the end of Rebels to Ahsoka to even the Bad Batch season 1, because we got some of his character in that and like understanding and looking at his character and realizing like we know how he dies and stuff like that. So I it's a really good one. I'm pretty sure it's on Jeremiah's list and I'm pretty sure it's on Andrew's list. So we don't need to spend too much time on mine because Jeremiah will break it down again. But either way, that was a really cool death and really impactful to Star Wars. So yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well, my number 3, it might be on all 3 of our lists. I'm fairly certain it could have been Andrew's number 1. We should have had him send in a
We should have
voicemail.
just had him send it. Yeah, dang it.
um, but I had to go with Maul's death.
Ooh.
So that is just so much backstory to like leading up to that death.
Mm-hmm.
Like other deaths, it's like your Django Fett. Like that's he's just in one movie. There's not like a lot of like huge like emotional connection to Django, but like watching Maul through the Clone Wars and how he survived from episode 1 and like his story of like rising up again and like him like still fighting Obi-Wan during Clone Wars and then nothing happens and then he tracks down Obi-Wan all these years later on Tatooine and they finally have their final face off and their speech and everything and then it's just
Mm-hmm.
boom boom slice by Obi-Wan. There's 3 swings and Maul is cut down and then how Obi-Wan catches him and then kind of like has compassion and sees that Maul is also a victim of the Sith, not just a Jedi.
Yep.
And it was just a very, very powerful, sad scene. And, you know, Maul is in my top 5 characters of all time. So seeing him come to his end finally was a very meaningful, well deserved ending to his character.
Agreed.
So that is my number 3. Drew, what's your number 2?
My number 2. I don't know if this is on yours. I have a feeling it could have been on Andrews.
I have a sleeper. I think for my number 2, it's a sleeper that not a lot of people would remember, but it could be the same.
Maybe not then. My number 3
Or 2.
is, or sorry, my number 2. My bad. My number 2 is Anakin's mom.
Oh, that's not on my list. That's a good one. I completely forgot about that.
That's a very intense one.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. Like when I was like building this list, I was like, I just want to make sure that I'm using these deaths and not just as like a funny thing. Like I could just go and say, my number 2 was the Tauntaun that Luke went inside, and without that Tauntaun dying, Luke would have died.
And you wouldn't have your joke, your
yes. So like thinking about it, like maybe that would be one of my honorable mentions. I'm not sure, but
number 2 though, dang.
I think number 2, Shmi, I feel like that's a really impactful, very intense death in Star Wars.
You're right.
If not one of the number 1 deaths in Star Wars.
Yep.
And with her dying, if she wouldn't have died, if he would have went all the way there and she was fine with her new husband, they were farming for water, it would have been all fine. Anakin probably wouldn't have turned when he turned. Not to say he wouldn't have turned, but that intensity of losing his mom is what made him think about potentially losing his wife and made him dream about those things. And then we saw the beginning of evil in him when he killed all those Sand people, even the children, and what he was dealing with emotionally and the women. And so like that was the beginning of the fall of Anakin because he had that attachment with her. He didn't see her. She was free, but then she was captured. So she almost had her freedom. Like she almost was there, and then she still lost it all at the end. Was very impactful for him. So I feel like that death is a very intense death in Star Wars. And I'm surprised, Jeremiah, that's not on your list.
I totally forgot about it. Like I was thinking like every movie, like, okay, who died in this movie? Who died in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even think of that in episode 2.
That's a pretty intense death.
All right, so, my number 2 from Mando season 1, episode 7.
Oh no,
Queel.
Queel. Oh,
you forgot about him?
No, well, yes, but no. Queel.
So
that just makes me sad.
That was just a very, very sad because it's like he's racing to get back to the Razor Crest with Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know Grogu's name yet. It says the kid,
the child,
the child, and he's just racing back as fast as he can on the
speeder.
No, he's on the blurg.
Oh no, yeah, he was on a blurg,
and just huffing along as fast as he can. And the troopers on the speeders are coming behind him. And it's like, is he gonna make it? Because we see him, he's
We
only
did.
like 100
We
feet away,
Oh,
and then
gosh,
it go,
season 1 of Mando is so good, dude.
and he goes
Season
back,
1 of Mando is so good, dude.
and then it goes to Mana. Quill, are you there? Did you make it? And we're waiting, and then we
And you
see
just
him
see it
go
roll.
to the comm on the ground, and it pans over to well, first we see Grogu on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and then the trooper picks him up, and then we see the comm, and then Queel is there dead right outside the Razor Crest. Like, dang it, that was like the
That was a pretty
moment.
intense moment.
That was the moment, like the first. I think maybe like the first like. Okay, well, there's a lot of great things that happen in season 1, but that one was just like the biggest like emotional moment in season 1, and I was
And
just
then
sad that
episode 8 started with a bang, dude, right after that.
yeah, it was just like all out chaos, and then we get the huge dark saber at the end when you and I jumped up in the air. Like I still remember that
Oh
moment.
my goodness.
Yep. So Queel, R.I.P. This is the way. That's where we. Or sorry, I have spoken. That's what he
I
says.
have
I have
spoken.
spoken, and he's like, that's his line. That's gonna be in our minds forever. Every time we see an Ugnaught. So
That didn't.
he
That's
didn't
also.
snort. That was other. That was Beelan in the High Republic audiobooks. We hear him.
Oh yeah, he snorted like all the time.
Yep, and he also says, "I have spoken
I
too"
have
a couple times.
spoken.
So that was cool. All right, well, before we get into our honorable mentions, if you're grieving someone's death, what better way to help you grieve than with a hot beverage such as coffee or tea? And coincidentally, our sponsor for today is Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. So let's take a listen to their offer today.
Hey everyone, Andrew here. I'm pleased to tell you that the sponsor of today's episode is Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea. If you don't know anything about Wesley Andrews, you definitely should. They're an award-winning coffee roaster and shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they make fantastic coffee. The awesome thing is that whether you live in the Twin Cities or not, you can get their coffee beans delivered straight to your door by ordering them online. They even have a subscription service that ensures you never run out of amazing coffee. If you've been looking for some new coffee to try or a way to elevate your normal coffee routine, now's your chance. Head over to wesleyandrews.cc, use the code Empire Radio, that's with a capital E and a capital R with no space at checkout, to get 15% off your first purchase of any bags of coffee or a coffee subscription. I can't think of a better deal. Get 15% off some great coffee, support a small business, and support your favorite Star Wars podcast. In the words of Emperor Palpatine, do it.
Do it.
All right, well, let's go over some honorable mentions of ideas that I had. That I had one that I took off my list, but what were your honorable mentions before we get to your number one?
I don't really have much. I think one of mine would probably be Qui-Gon.
Okay.
Qui-Gon, which is what I was thinking that is probably on Andrew's top, potentially his number one.
Yep.
I think Qui-Gon would, I mean, Qui-Gon's death, and if he would have been able to train Anakin and what that could have meant. One that I didn't like, and they did him dirty, was episode 8, and I'm pretty sure most people could guess, but apparently it was a trap for him, and none of us got to enjoy his death properly. So,
Talking about Luke?
no, it's a trap.
Oh, sorry. I was like, who are you talking about? Oh, Admiral Akbar, how he should have
Yes.
been the one who sacrificed his life, not
His death was bleh, bad. One that might be one of yours could be your final one. Han Solo.
I actually had that one on my list.
Was
and
that one of them that you took off?
So that was one of two that I took off my list. I had it on there just because I really, really liked that scene.
I was gonna say, I feel like you like that one a lot.
That was a really good, well written scene. The visuals, the cinematography,
Mhm.
the symbolism of the lights and stuff, like in the scene. A very emotional scene. So yeah, I had that on my list.
Yeah, that was one that was on my list, and I took off Han Solo. That would have been a good one. Trying to think, is there any other ones I was thinking of? Mm, Ben Solo.
Why? Because he got his
The life
life
sucked
sucked
out of
out
him.
of him. Okay.
Um, so like when I was like building my list, I looked up like top 5 deaths in Star Wars, and one of them, this is kind of weird, but it's Rogue One.
So how everyone died.
Everyone
I actually,
died.
I actually have that as like, but I was like, does that count as a
Just Rogue One in general.
like if you had to pick one of that team, it would probably be Churrit.
Yeah. Oh,
That was probably the saddest one of them all, but they were
yeah.
all sad.
But his death was pretty intense, and that was the start of the rebellion. So that was the beginning. So I mean, yeah, honestly, Rogue One, all those deaths. Without those deaths, the rebellion really wouldn't have started. That's how they got the plans. I mean, the rebellion was already there. It started, but
they didn't, this was their
they,
first like alliance
this was their
battle.
first thing.
Yeah,
So, also what's his name? The guy in Rogue One.
Saw Gerrera.
Yes, Sog. His death was pretty intense
Yeah,
and sad and depressing.
yeah.
So those are good ones. What about you?
You.
What's your other one?
So the other one I had on my list was from Andor, Tim with two M's. Remember, he was the one that snitched on him, and he got shot and killed and fell down the stairs or whatever.
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
was so happy, like screw that guy. Tim with two M's. I had him on my list. I took him off. I'm like, there's better ones, so I had to take him off.
Oh, what's his name? I can't swim now. I don't know. I mean, I guess we
Oh
don't know if he died, but
no, unconfirmed. We can't have him on the
can't
list.
have him on the list. But oof, that
Yep.
oof. I don't think I've cried so hard at Star Wars, and that moment was one of them, dude.
So then I had some from Clone Wars. So there's a scene when Ahsoka decapitates 4 Mandalorians all in 1 second, one swoop. That was pretty intense. Like, holy smokes. Because that whole scene was pretty intense.
Mhm.
But her killing those 4 Mandos just between the helmet and their shoulder armor, like, had to be perfect in a half a second. So that was cool. There's a scene in Clone Wars where that Twi'lek slave throws herself off the edge of the building because she doesn't want to be a slave
Oh
anymore.
yeah.
That's super intense. Like, this is a kid's show. Another example of
Yeah,
like,
another example of probably shouldn't have been allowed.
yep. And then there's a scene in Clone Wars when Maul is recruiting crime syndicates, and there's a scene when like there's a one syndicate where they're all along this long table,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it would have been Savage. I think was the one that actually did it, but he throws his double bladed saber and decapitates every single one on both sides of the table. Remember that one?
Yep, that was pretty dope.
And so that one was intense. I also had from Obi-Wan Kenobi show, Tala, her death, the lady that was undercover in the Empire and was kind of like Leia's first role model as a rebellion leader, was when she died, and she said, "May the Force be with you" to Obi-Wan just before she blew up. That was super sad. I cried when that happened. Yeah. All right.
There's
Those are
definitely ones we're missing, but
yeah, we're definitely missing a lot. And I remember I had one when I was thinking about like earlier this week, and I was at work, so I wasn't able to write it down on my list. I forgot what it was. So, all right, well, we're at our number ones, Drew.
my
What
number
is?
one,
Wait, let me see if I can guess.
guess.
It could be the mall one, but you guys smirk. So I don't know if that's a yes or a no. But I'm also thinking like maybe like Anakin Vader at the end of episode 6. I don't know if you're that nostalgic for that. I don't know. Or
It was one
maybe
I was thinking, like Anakin's death.
or Yoda in episode 6 when he fades away, or Ben Kenobi when he fades away in episode 1. But
Oh, I forgot to mention, honorable mention was the Tauntaun. The
yep.
Tauntaun. Without that Tauntaun dying, there'd be no Luke. He would have froze to death. So I mean, come on,
And Han too.
and Han. So
Dang, that's a what if right there.
that is a what if.
It would have been Leia. She would have been
We would have never known what the temperature of a Tauntaun insides would have been.
Yeah, lukewarm.
But now we know they're lukewarm.
Yep. All right, well, throw it on me. What's your number one death in all of Star Wars?
Well, you guessed it. Maul.
Okay.
Maul was my number one. I mean, come on. That death was so intense. And when he asked Obi-Wan, like, is he the chosen one? And Obi-Wan says yes. That like confused everyone. Also, I feel like that was the beginning point that everyone was either for that death or hated it, right? That was like a moment in Star Wars history that I remember there was a lot of debate
Really?
on how that death went.
I
Yes.
thought everyone loved that scene. I never heard any negative.
Oh, I heard a lot of negative at first. Now, in hindsight, I feel like everyone loves it. But at first, that was a moment where people are like, what is Dave Filoni doing? What is Disney doing? Like, people hated it until Dave came out with like a whole like interview and he talked about why he did it that way and what that meant and all that stuff and how samurais, their fights weren't long, like they were quick like that, and so like that like made me love it. At first I was one of those people that I was like, that's stupid, like Maul is Maul, like why did they kill him like that? And to hear that definition and understand what Dave Filoni was coming from in his perspective, I was like, all right, hashtag give it to Dave. So yeah.
And also, just how Maul did the same move he did to Qui-Gon, but Obi-Wan learned and cut through the block, or the check, I should say.
Yeah.
So, like, sees that Maul never learned to get better, but Obi-Wan got way better. He learned from mistakes of the past.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Well, do you have a guess on what my number one is?
Kanan Jarrus.
Is that your only guess?
Or Qui-Gon.
Is Kanan's death.
I knew it.
So, because the thing is, like, I had to put this as number one because it's actually, if I remember correctly, it was my number 2 moment in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And that was the only death.
Well, I knew it was definitely on your list. I'm like, dude, there's no way. I mean, Qui-Gon, like, that could have been on your list. I'm pretty sure that was Andrew's number one.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If we text him now, he'd be like, it's Qui-Gon. So, like, we can just assume that was his number one. But,
right.
All right, break that down. Tell me why that's your number one.
It was just such an emotional thing because it goes to, like, slow motion a little bit, kind of, but, like, it's also not slow motion. And the music was just so, like, it was like a little bit of like choir-y music with, like, like super slow music, but like choir and orchestra. And he gets his eyesight back when he's just so connected with the Force, and like he sees Hera one last time while he's holding her away. And
I always forget about that. He sees again too.
Yeah, like his eyes is open up again, and then like while this is all happening, he's still holding back the blast of this
Mm-hmm.
fuel container. That's like, this is probably the biggest, like the most powerful use of the force we've ever seen. Like to hold that much pressure back.
He would
And
have been able to save the twins. Let's be real.
the twins.
Yes. And the
Huh?
acolyte, he would have been able to hold both those bridges.
Oh, I was like, what are you
He
talking?
would have held those bridges and pulled them off at the same
No,
time.
he didn't have the emotion. He wouldn't have had the emotional.
I don't know. I
It's
feel like
because
he would have figured
he
it
was
out.
so emotionally attached to it, because the whole crew. He saved Hera,
Oh yeah, say everyone.
Ezra, and Sabine. Like I don't know what other moments in Star Wars can compare to like that use of how strong the Force is, like in a single moment.
Maybe when Luke transformed his essence in Episode 8.
Yeah, I
That's a
guess
lot of power to do.
it did end up killing him, but like I don't know. Like he was actually able to meditate and like get in the zone. Kanan was like
In the moment.
instant. Like
Yeah.
the tank gets shot and he runs out and pushes it back within like 2 seconds. Like,
Yeah.
and so super super emotional. Like that was my number one moment in all Star Wars until Clone Wars season 7 happened, and so it's gonna be hard for that one to ever get replaced. Like
Imagine that guilt that you have too on like Sabine and Ezra watching their master essentially save their lives / lose his wife or his love interest or whatever.
Yep.
Like that's so much that trauma behind that is definitely weighing on them.
Yeah, and then like how like he didn't just hold it back. Like the last thing he did is he stopped holding the fire back and then force pushed their ship away so
Mm-hmm.
they could fly away. And so, yeah, that has to be my number one. And I know that, a lot of people would have, like Andrew would say Qui-Gon because of how if Anakin could have gotten trained by Qui-Gon, everything would have been different. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
But also, I feel like that's also definitely in Andrew's list too. I mean, it's mine. It's my number 3. So,
I had on my honorable mention, but I didn't mention it when you said it
Qui-Gon.
just because
It would have been the same thing.
because I didn't want to because then it removed one from your guess of what you could have thought my number one was.
I see you. Sneaky sneak.
But yeah, that is our top 5 deaths in all of Star Wars. So we'll have that as the Q&A for this episode. So let us know what your number 1 death is in Star Wars. You can put in the comments, or you can send in a voicemail for us next week or in the coming weeks, whatever. We'd love to hear from you. But also, don't be afraid to give suggestions for top 5s, because I know everyone loves top 5s, and we've done I don't know, 20 of them, maybe 15 of them.
Really?
I don't know. We've done a lot.
Jeez. Well, there's definitely more out there to do.
Yeah,
top 5 Mandalorian outfits.
I don't know.
We could do that.
They're all the same to me.
No, they're not.
To me, maybe to you they're different.
We gotta break those down. But real quick, Jeremiah, what was one on my list that was surprising? I have one on your list that was kind of surprising for me.
So I totally forgot about Shmi.
Shmi was.
So I have to go with Shmi.
Okay, that's fair. I feel like that one. It was either Shmi or Jango was like a little out of there, distant wise. For you was definitely the kiss one. I would have never thought that would have been on your list.
Why?
I don't know, because I don't know, I just didn't really think about that.
Yeah.
And that's like not a moment that I remember off the top of my head either. So
right,
that was a good one.
All right, cool. Well, that's for the episode, but we still got our voicemail time, which is everyone's favorite time of every episode. So let's transition over.
It's voicemail time.
All right, cool. Well, we are back with voicemails, and we got 4 of them tonight. And I know for sure this first one is a first-time sender, but I think another one is a first-time sender, but it also might have just been like 3 years since we've heard from this person also. So we got some fresh voices, but we got 2 familiar voices if you've been listening. So first up, first-time sender, Rafa.
Hey, Empire Radio. Longtime fan. My name is Rafa, and I wanted to say you guys are the best. Haha, JK. I didn't just want to say that. I also wanted to ask you what your favorite Star Wars bounty hunter is. And I'm so sorry, Jeremiah, but I'm gonna include you. For me, it's honestly the biggest tie in the world between Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum.
Ooh.
So, yeah. I was wondering what that was. You guys are the best. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Rafa. Good to hear from you.
Is that like throwing shade at you? Is that why?
I don't know.
They said...
I don't know. But, this top 5 bounty hunters could be a top 5.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't answer this.
I don't know. We could just list off.
Have we done top 5 bounty hunters yet?
I don't think so. Should we do that instead of answering Rafa's question right now?
Well, we should just say like one of them, but maybe that's not going to.
I don't know. See, the thing is, so the thing about the bounty hunters in Star Wars is technically there's only really a small pool of like bounty hunters. If you think about it, there's only like 15 that like we could probably list off of that like people actually know. You got ones in Clone Wars, then you got like the people like from episode 5, and then you have some that you see in like the Mandoverse stuff. But like
I was gonna say, there's a lot of Mando, but we don't really know the Mando.
Right. So I don't know. Do we want to skip the
kind of?
Should we? But then it's not going to be for like another few weeks until we do the top 5.
Yeah, I want to skip it though because I want to do a top 5 bounty hunters. I think that I'm curious to see what our order would be. Granted, it's probably going to be all the same 5 or close to it.
We're going to have a lot of similar ones.
But I'm liking that Black Chrysanthemum's in there because I know like in the comic series, he has a pretty impactful
right
bounty hunter story.
I was kind of like when we first see him in the Book of Boba Fett, like his entrance was like the most intense thing ever.
So intense, so cool.
And then kind of after, like when we see him fight,
kind of was like anything, but
like, come on, guy. But
when he walked in, though, we were like, "Who the heck is this dude?" Yeah.
So I think Rafa, we really appreciate the question. But I think we're gonna hold off. So let's see.
We got to do top 5 of this. So we're putting a pin in it, and we'll give you a lot of props. For that,
I think so. We already have next 2 weeks booked, but we could, the second week we could delay that one. So, but probably in 2 or 3 weeks we'll have our top 5
bounty hunters.
So sorry, Rafa, you're not getting to answer your question now. But it was such a great suggestion, such a great question that we're going to make an entire episode just to that question.
So shout out to you, first time caller, and you're already making us do a whole podcast episode. That's pretty good. That's rare. I think it's only happened one other time.
Yeah.
That we didn't answer someone's question and made an episode on it. So shout out to you.
So maybe
keep sending them in. Send in more. Maybe we'll get more. Maybe that's the beginning of this whole summer or the fall up until December or whatever.
Yep. Rafa, send us more top 5 suggestions.
Yes. Help us out.
I gotta like go back and look at all of our top 5s to
Make sure we didn't do that one.
I don't think we did it.
I don't think so.
But I still need to get a list to like know what we actually done, so I don't like accidentally repeat it if we did.
Yeah.
And if I go back and we did do bounty hunters, we'll answer it again next week.
Yeah. We'll replay your voicemail and answer it again. How about that?
Yep. All right. Thank you, Rafa. All right. Next up from our new friend E. So let's take a listen.
Hey, Empire Radio. It's your boy E again, or Emmanuel, but I go by E. This week's podcast on the book on the High Republic, probably was not my favorite. I would say most of them have not been my favorites, only because you have to read this and read that and this, and I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to a point to where I'm like, who's this new character? Oh yeah, they're in the last book that was written for young adults that I didn't read, or they're in this comic. It's just, it gets too much. I assume Disney is probably will hope that people will dive into these later, but whatever. Your conversation about the attachments and love. I wonder if you can love something, but the idea of attachment is, can you let them go when they need to be let go? So you can love them, you can care and weep and cry, but can you let them go when they need to go? Whether they pass away, which is sad, or they have to go on a mission. So think of like even Obi-Wan, when Qui-Gon Jinn died, he was sad. He went and picked them up and held them. And I think there were tears in episode 1 as he's watching Qui-Gon Jinn pass away, but he let him go. So I think the idea of attachment, is it possible? It's not so much about like keeping it. It's more like love it, cherish it, but let it go when you need to. What do you guys think?
All right. Thank you, E, for that question. It's a very complicated question because
that's so intense, dude.
That's a whole episode on it.
That is so intense.
But like, I think you're right that it's about the ability to let go when you need to. But I think with one of the big issues with the Fall of the Jedi is that they became apathetic to a lot of people and people they interacted with, and so because they were afraid to love because they knew that it would easily cause attachments that they couldn't let go of. And so, but like in this High Republic book, it's, Yoda kind of has a little conversation with Elzar and says, talks about how you can still love, but that doesn't mean that you are attached to them, which was a complicated thing in my opinion. Like, how can that be? But I think you are right that it's about your ability to let go once they have died or moved away or something like that. I don't know, Drew.
Yeah, I think it's harder when you fully love someone to let them go, especially if their death, like Qui-Gon's was unexpected, young person who had a lot of future and death. And I think like that's what's in life when you lose someone who is an older grandparent, it is easier to let someone go when you know that they've had a life.
Right.
But when you lose someone who's young, it sticks with you for a long time. And so I think that is the issue that the Jedi were having, was when you love someone that deeply, and can you let them go? Can you release that? And so like in this scenario, if she dies, is he going to be able to let that go, or is it going to break him? It's gonna break him. Like, let's be
Elzar,
real. Like, Elzar is gonna break when she ends up dying, because we know that's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure Elzar is gonna become evil. So like that's gonna be the fall of his character. And I think I think that's just life in general. Like, especially like when you love someone. Like, if I lost my wife now, that would be crazy.
Right.
But if I lose my wife when we're both in our 80s, it's gonna suck. Obviously, not saying it's not going to, but like, there's a different impactfulness when it's between ages. Because I had a long life with her, but now, no. And like losing when you get older, there's a lot of young people that are listening to this and stuff like that. And when you get older, you gain so much attachment towards others. And when you lose someone at a very young age, it sticks with you a lot longer.
Right.
Like, I've lost someone that was 4 years older than me, and I still deal with that daily. And so if I was a Jedi, I would probably turn evil off based off of that, So I think that's the hard part about that, and why they're set told to not love, for the afraidness of losing someone and not being able to. And that's the fall of Anakin, right? Because he was so afraid to lose someone that he couldn't. He did everything in his power and became evil, so he didn't lose that person.
And he did anyway.
But he did anyways, because he actually was the reason why. But that's yeah. So, and like what we've been talking about tonight, Shmi, if she wouldn't have died, who would have known how Anakin would have turned out? So,
or if he still had the attachment to his mother, and that's why he went back.
And that's another reason why they don't bring people when they're older to the Jedi Order, because, and that was the issue with May, right? She couldn't, or Osha, she couldn't give up that attachment of losing her sister or blaming her sister for what happened,
right?
Or losing her mother and seeing her mother die because she was older. So I think he's right. I think he's right when it comes to, are you able to love and let go? And most people aren't.
Right.
Which is why they encourage not to love. But love. It's kind of confusing. But yeah.
Yep.
But that got super deep. But whatever.
Yeah. But then, we talked about Cain and Jarrus. Like, he was in love with Hera and then loved Ezra and Sabine. That, like, his attachment to them caused him to let go, in the sense that he was going to let himself die to save them. Like,
there's also that. I mean, the same with Vader.
Vader had attachment to Luke, but also Luke had an attachment to all of his friends in the rebellion outside the Death Star number 2. That he's like, I got to save them, and I have to fight Vader and the Emperor. And so it's a complicated thing in Star Wars. We'll never understand it.
I think it's a complicated in life that we won't understand, and why it creates a really good story.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you, E, for that. Good to hear from you again. Next up, we haven't heard from him for a while, but he's still a good friend of the podcast, Will. So let's take a listen.
Oh.
Hey, Radio. Will here. My voice feels weird saying top death, but Qui-Gon Jinn, because it's like, what happens now? And then the whole route of, Anakin probably wouldn't have gone down the path that he went down if it wasn't for Qui-Gon dying.
Yep. All right.
Yep.
Thank you, Will. You're right. Qui-Gon's death was a big one. I was like, I don't have it on my list. I hope Drew has it on his.
I did not, but that's also because I assumed Andrew would have it on his. So,
yep. But thank you, Will. Good to hear from you. Yes, it is kind of weird saying top 5 deaths. Like, when I was came up with the idea, I'm like, is there another way I can word this to make it not sound so terrible? But hopefully the thumbnail will get some extra clicks on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Will. Next up, from someone I think maybe you and Andrew both know, or Andrew just knows from North Central. I think this is Ty Collins from the Discord. I don't know. I think he's friends with Andrew. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe this is a completely different Ty that is in the Discord. And I don't know, but it's from someone named Ty. I don't think we've heard from him before, and he also is giving his answer to top 5 deaths. So let's take a listen.
Hey, this is Ty, and if we're talking about top 5 Star Wars deaths, Qui-Gon Jinn has to be up there. It is one of the most impactful deaths on the whole entire series. It's an earned death, one of the sequences that is burned in every Star Wars fan's mind is that Duel of the Fates, and I know it's meant to mirror the Obi-Wan death in Episode 4, but this one just feels at an emotional level so much more. And I feel like the impact of it on Anakin, on Obi-Wan, on the Order is just so much deeper than Obi-Wan. I feel like for the most part, we don't really feel Obi-Wan's loss has this huge impact. Also, this sets forward in motion the Jedi being able to learn how to transition into Force Ghosts, which that's pretty important for the rest of the series.
All right. Thank you, Ty, for that.
Tie-dye.
You know who that is?
Yes. Okay. Used to work with him, went to school, and I believe still is the EA coach for North Central, potentially.
I have
no idea. Let us know in the Discord or just shoot me a message. Yeah, longtime friend. I think he's TIE Fighter in the Discord.
Is it that one?
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
There are two different. I'm trying to, because there's another Ty.
At least that's his username in games when I used to play with him a lot. It was TIE Fighter. Unless he changed his name.
Well, on Discord, there's NCU_Ty J Collins.
I don't think
and it says you're mutual friends on Discord.
Okay,
so
maybe change his name to be more professional.
Yep.
But yes,
Qui-Gon Jinn, another person that has that on there that we didn't have on our. So maybe we're dropping the ball with not having Qui-Gon on our list,
or we didn't, and other people got our back.
Because that too.
Both of those last 2 emails between Will and Tie-Dye, that's why I always called him when we worked together. So that's why I call him that. But between those two, especially Ty's, like the way he described that whole thing was perfect, and good job because you covered for Andrew. Because that's probably how Andrew would have said it. So
he brought up the great
Force Ghost.
The Force Ghost thing that Qui-Gon was. He didn't get full Force Ghost status. He was just able to. But then he does.
He does though in Kenobi.
So I don't know. The whole Force Ghost thing in Star Wars does not make sense because why did Anakin get a Force Ghost?
Because he became pure at the end.
Yeah, but he didn't go through the training that Qui-Gon / Yoda went through that we learned about the process.
Tomato.
So, but then Qui-Gon, he was able to become a Force Ghost later, even though before he couldn't. How does that work? I don't know. But
he's still training.
Not Qui-Gon.
Yeah, out there as a ghost.
I don't know. I would say there's not someone to have climb on your back to train with. I don't know how that works in the cosmic force or whatever.
I don't know.
All right. Well, thank you, Ty, Will, E, and Rafa for your voicemails. It's great to hear from you all. But that's all we have for tonight. A quick episode. Top 5s go pretty quick, especially when it's just the two of us. So this will be a lot faster for me to edit, but I'm probably not going to put this up until a couple days just so there's more time from our late posted episode earlier this week. So there's that. But if you want to get more connected with us and go join a Discord or anything like that, the easiest way to do that is go in the description below, click the link down there where it's a landing page for everything, the links.co/Empire Radio link. Click on that landing page for everything. So yeah, send us a voicemail, join the Discord, fan email. There's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and also needlesslynerdy.com, which is an entertainment network that we're part of. So go check that out too for more nerdy content apart from Star Wars and Empire Radio. But yeah, so next week we're excited for Comics with Grace number 3, which is part 2 of the Vader and Aphra comics. And so we're excited for that. So go follow us, get ready for that, because that's going to be a lot of fun. The conclusion of that kind of partnership between those two characters, I believe, is how it's going to end. So that's exciting. And then, in a couple of weeks, we're probably going to have top 5 bounty hunters. So, keep those ideas coming. If you want to send in some voicemails, give us some ideas of ones that are not so obvious. Like, it's going to be some ideas that we need to get for that. We're going to do some behind the scenes stuff, maybe a little after that, for another documentary thing from Light and Magic, the documentary on Disney Plus. And then after that, we kind of are figuring out what we're going to do for a schedule, because we're hoping for some trailers. The Lego Star Wars What If thing is coming out in September. So
that's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. We're going to play stuff by ear, but we got a lot of content we need to plan for the next 4 months before Skeleton Crew. So it's going to be a fun time figuring all that stuff out. So anything else, Drew?
No.
All right, cool. Well, you've been listening to another Top 5-tastic episode of Empire Radio. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Drew.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.